this is John Sadak, TV voice of the Cincinnati Reds, and you're up for Late Night Reds Talk.
What is going on, everybody? It is now Monday night, and I guess we can now say, you know what that means. Another edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network and Bet Online. Bet Online is back and better than ever with their new web interface for the start of basketball season and more props, odds, lines than ever before. Head to the new updated mobile website, sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV 50 to receive your bonus. That's BELIEVE, BLEAV 50 for betonline.com. I am Tim Daniel. I am very excited for today's episode. Our new night on Monday nights here as we get ready, a good start for the off season. As always, with our excellent panel, Mr. Nick Kirby. How are you, sir?
What's going on? I was so ready and prepared to say welcome to the off season in about the third inning last night, and the Braves screwed that up. So just happy Monday night, fellas.
Happy Monday night indeed. Also joining us, Mr. Carlos Guevara, former big league pitcher. How are you?
What's up, boys? How y'all?
Good, man. Good. Also, we're really excited for our excellent guest here today. You can check him out. He is the co-host, as my notes, of course, go away from me. So I'm sorry about that, Kyle. For the Reds Recall podcast, you can check out his work on Max's Sporting Studio and Reds Contact Plus. This is Kyle Berger. Welcome to Late Night Reds Talk Live. How you doing, man?
Good. Glad to join you guys this week.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. We have a lot of fun things to talk about, and I want to get your insight and thoughts on the team as well. Before we do get into there, tell us a little bit about your work, whether it be your podcast, your articles, anything where you kind of dive into so people kind of know the work you do.
Yeah, so for the articles that I write, most of them are analytically based. Reds Content Plus is a very analytically based Reds site, so we get into the stats and kind of explain what they mean and how Reds hitters perform with them. And then our podcast, I started it with a friend I had from high school, and we're both really big Reds fans. So we wanted to just be able to talk about anything and everything about the Reds. So we've been doing that through our podcast.
Excellent, man. We certainly understand wanting to talk about the Reds on a podcast. So we are there with you. You mentioned obviously that you are a big Reds fan, and so much that we got to start the show off with the fact that we see you got married at Great American Ballpark.
Yes, I did. That was a very unique and wonderful experience. Everything went as great as I could have ever expected it to.
Tell us about that, man. What is the wedding planning process like for that?
It's stressful, that's for sure. But yeah, from I guess about 6 months in advance, we decided we were going to have it at Great American Ballpark. And I thought there was no way my wife was going to say yes to that. She did. She loved the idea. So, yeah, we went with it.
That's pretty cool.
Did you have any family members that were opposed to? You don't have to throw names out there.
No, they all loved the idea, actually. Most of my family's big Reds fans, so they loved the idea. And we got a lot of compliments on how nice the wedding was and how nice the venue was.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, now I'm like, man, I did a cool park. My wife doesn't watch this, so I can say that. So, but yeah, man, that is really cool. I've got to do the tour of the stadium a couple times. And so did you get to kind of do like the walkthrough, like where the clubhouse is and everything like that?
We didn't get to walk through the clubhouses or anything because of COVID. They had that closed off to the public, but we did get like the more vague tour of the everything else in the ballpark except for like the clubhouses.
Nice. Yeah, I understand that. Well, that's awesome, man. It's a really cool experience. You got to do that. Nothing like that, I can imagine. Let's kind of talk a little bit about what is going on in the world of baseball right now. Obviously, that is the World Series where the Braves are now heading back to Houston up 3-2, like Nick said. The bottom of the first last night, former Red Adam Duvall hits a grand slam. It looks like we might be done with the series, but Houston makes a comeback last night. What are you guys' thoughts on the World Series so far? What's kind of jumping out to you?
Well, I mean, I'm glad it's, at least going to go 6, maybe 7 games. I mean, when you have a World Series where you have, two teams that I'm not don't have a massive interest in either one, you just want the series to go long. And, when you get into that 6th and 7th game, that's where you can have like just some of the the great moments in baseball happen. So, just kind of rooting for that kind of at this point. But fun series. Hopefully a preview of Adam Duvall and Cincinnati in 2022. I'm starting the train. Let's go.
I love Carlos's reaction to that.
Stop it, Nick.
Carlos does not like home runs. Anti-home run.
Hey, we saw that movie already once. But as far as the World Series, I said it last week. I missed the top starters versus top starters going, back-to-back games and, looking ahead. Hey, we got Scherzer going tomorrow or Game 6, and right now it's just which bullpen guys will come out more. Who's going to throw more than 1 2/3? It's hard for me to get into that.
I mean, going into the series, I thought Max Fried and Ian Anderson could at least go deep into the game for the Braves, but that hasn't really happened either.
Nobody.
I think both managers are managing, well and doing the right calls, in terms of what's going to give them the best chance of winning.
Whenever Greinke pitched, he had a bad game.
Yeah, it's insane seeing Dusty pulling starters so early. I'm just like, I want to like throw something at my TV. Like, where was this? What is going on? But yeah, I hear you, Carlos. I'm someone who is all about pull the starters early, but I definitely think that MLB has to counter this. We talked before about the really great idea that I love about. You lose the DH when you pull your starting pitcher. And I feel like that would be a really big incentive to keeping your starter a little bit longer. I feel like they should be a little more creative with this because, teams can't be dumb just for the sake of making baseball better product to watch on TV. You have to manage to win. And most of the time, pulling your starter is the correct move, even if it's, kind of a lame move.
Yeah, I just didn't understand betting Greinke 8 when you're knowing maybe he might get one at bat. Maybe.
Well, Maldonado is one of the worst hitters in baseball. So my guess is their strategy was Greinke's only gonna bat once. We'd rather have our pinch hitters getting extra at bats as opposed to Maldonado. He's really bad.
But then at that point, then Maldonado becomes the pitcher. Like, you're not really
in a roundabout way, yeah.
Yeah, but he might be, but your pinch hitter is one spot ahead. I don't know who's their eight hole hitter is.
Yeah, either way, but they're still going to pitch around him to get to that 9th spot.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That pinch hitter hitting in front of Altuve. That's what I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of Kyle, you could probably speak more to this. A lot of the if you do like a lineup optimizer, it actually tells you that you should bat the pitcher 8th because it says you're optimized better with a guy that's higher on base batting 9th. Which actually what they did with Maldonado would actually be almost counterintuitive to that if that was their thinking.
Does Maldonado get on base? Does he draw walks? You want a guy on base for your top of the lineup. So that's usually why they say you want to bat your pitcher 8th so you can have a higher on base percentage guy 9th to be on base for your leadoff hitter.
Yeah. I'm honestly the pitcher spot Maldonado, I don't really think it matters all that much. They're both pretty much easy outs. Except Maldonado, for whatever reason, has had like several hits in this series, and he's one of the worst hitters in baseball. But just it happens.
Do you think Dusty's looking at right now being down 3-2 like, damn it, again?
Oh, that definitely went through his mind.
Yeah.
It's better than down 3-1. I mean,
or in his case, up 2-0.
Yeah. He was up 3-1 in the World Series, wasn't he, with the Giants? Or is that 3-2? Up 3-2 in that series? And I know he was up 3-1 with the Cubs. The Bartman series. So he's had several series where it's been on the other end.
I don't know, man. I'm not gonna go and say like he's executed badly, but I guess he was kind of I know you disagreed, Nick, because of things, but I was kind of hoping he was gonna win this series. And obviously, anything can happen these next 2 games. If there is 2 games, I should say. But I want to see him get one. I'm not. I know, but
I hold a grudge, man. I hold a grudge.
well, shouldn't you hold a grudge for the '95 NLCS then? That's worse than what Dusty did.
They got swept by Maddox, Smoltz, Glavin, and like 3 Hall of Famers. Like they didn't blow a 2-0 lead to Hunter Pence. Like, come on. Like that's a totally different animal.
That's fair, but that's the
At
closest
home.
the Reds were to a World Series in a long time.
I would argue their odds when they were up 2 games to none. I bet if you actually did a statistical analysis, I bet their odds when they were up 2 games to none in the NLDS was significantly higher than when the NLCS started before the Braves when it was 0-0. Just look at who the Reds were facing in that series. I mean, 3 Hall of Fame pitchers. I mean, and that season, and not to rehash terrible memories, but I mean, that was a very winnable. I mean, the Tigers were not an elite team. They played in the World Series. Cardinals, the Reds literally beat them in the NL Central, would have been the NLCS. So that's I think the best chance the Reds had in my lifetime. And I don't even think it's even close. I think it's way closer than 95. I don't know, 94, you could say whatever, who knows how that would have played out, but yeah, I can't root for him. I'm glad other people are more forgiving than me. I'm not. I was at that game. Everyone in the stadium knew that Matt Latos was melting down and should have been pulled, and he didn't pull him. I'm not forgiven. So
I was at Game 4 when they were like, "Oh, Mike Leake's starting." Like that day, you're like, "Ah, shit." Not a thing against Mike Leake, but you're like, "Oh no, that doesn't sound good."
Oh, can't believe it. Mr. Optimistic over here holds grudges. This doesn't add up.
That's why I'm optimistic now because of what I've been through, But yeah, Leak is another interesting move because like Dusty's out here doing bullpen games now. Like, and he was out starting Mike Leake, who had like a 7 ERA in September that year. He was
wasn't even on the postseason roster.
I don't even think he was like. I think he probably was like, "Yeah, I'm done for the year. I'm shutting it down." Like,
yeah,
I gotta go.
Him like that day.
I got a pitch. Oh crap, and he was just not even like remotely. And Mike Leake was a good pitcher, has had a nice career, but he was not anywhere near should be pitching in the postseason that year.
Yeah, I think it takes away from me too. Just thinking like I was growing up watching all those Braves teams with the Smoltz and Max and Glavins and Averys and all those guys. So I fell in love with the game and pitching, and like those guys went to all these pennant championships, however 13 in a row, whatever it was. Go to the World Series, they only get one, and now the Braves with this pitching staff that's left over and this lineup, I'm like, what? This isn't fair. They don't deserve to win. Those guys only won one.
Yeah, my dad seems to think that they're just fine without Ronald Acuna apparently, and that Adam Duvall is their future.
Maybe this week.
I think the Braves and even the Astros with kind of the pitching rotation that they're kind of piecing together right now. I think just it's good examples, man. Just get to the postseason because you never know what will happen. If you think, their team's not good enough to get it, you get in the dance. You give yourself a chance. Get in the dance more.
I like the dance.
Yeah.
Get in the dance.
What do you think, Kyle? I think he's muted.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Good.
Sorry, something happened with my microphone, I guess. I am a little surprised that the Braves have played so well, but the way they played the first 2 series, once they got to the World Series, I thought they were the favorites, honestly, the way they played. Some people don't believe in momentum, but it seems like it's worked for them, so
I thought it was a toss-up. I mean, especially with McCullers out. I probably would feel a little different if they had McCullers, but
yeah, I think that's part of why I thought the Braves had the better chance because their roster was basically at full strength. Of course, they're missing Acuna, but they've been missing him the entire second half of the year, so they've adapted to that.
Yeah, all these low average, high power guys. Let's go. Love it. Love it.
Man. I almost fear that if Adam Duvall does in fact end up playing for the Reds next year, what Nick's celebration will be.
I don't know if it's like celebrating. I just think he'd be a really good fit. There's a lot of players like him.
Nick next year on Twitter if that happens.
All 215 strikeouts. I'm going to get something every single one of them.
The Reds do need a right-handed outfielder of some sort, whether it's Duvall or somebody else. They need a right-handed outfielder.
I think they might need 2 right-handed outfielders.
Well, if Castellanos doesn't come back, they'll need 2.
Yeah.
I don't know who I want less in the Adam Duvall, Andrew McCutchen debate. I just feel like it's a loss for either of them. I know Nick's talked himself into the potential of McCutchen.
Talking about holding a grudge. Andrew McCutchen.
No. McCutchen is not a full outfielder. He's a platoon outfielder only. Do not put words in. Andrew McCutchen is not a full-time outfielder. Don't want any part of that. If he's getting paid like a full-time outfielder, no. But he still hits left-handed pitching really, really well. So I'm interested to see who picks up. I am imagining there'll be a team that will pay him a little bit more than the Reds will be willing to play for a platoon player. But he could definitely platoon well.
Yeah.
For
as long as he played for the Pirates, I just can't get behind rooting for Andrew McCutchen.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. The whole Aroldis Chapman debacle that he threw at me on purpose when they're up 4-0 in the bottom of the 9th with 2 outs. I'm like, oh my God. Like when your manager's Clint Hurdle, who has everyone beam everyone. I'm like, yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you, Kyle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's kind of move real quick into some Reds discussion here. Obviously now the big news comes out is Derek Johnson gets a nice solid promotion. He would be assuming the additional role of director of pitching. He's now responsible for the development and communication of pitching philosophy initiatives throughout the entire organization. Not 100% what that means, but it sounds cool.
I'm just glad they still have him. I think some of this move was, give him a new title and, be able to retain him. I don't think they announced the official how long it is, but they said it was an extension, I believe. So.
Yeah, but I found it interesting that apparently he was under contract through next season anyway before this announcement, and then there was an extension on top of that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I would think that means at least 2, probably 3, maybe 4 years. I don't know. Probably at least 3, right? I would think 3 years counting next.
Yeah, you would think so.
Yeah. So, I think it's just great to have him. The word philosophy that was in there, I feel like was strategically put in there. It makes me wonder if, maybe Derek Johnson, and Kyle Bodie had some differences, maybe not massive differences, but, maybe they did have some difference of philosophy. Just the word philosophy being in the official release was very interesting to me.
You felt like it was like the NBA pettiness that like you see like
yes, it felt
team Twitter accounts do. Like
it felt very petty, and this is just pure speculation. I don't know anything as always.
That feels like, hey, I'm going to have the final say on things like, are we going to shut this player down? Are we going to move this guy up? Because it's weird to have him in that role and him not watching these guys pitch. Videos really do so much.
I know he talked with somebody in an interview the other day about the new role, and he said a lot of the working with the minor league players was going to be during spring training, and then they're going to have 2 minor league pitching coordinators. So I wonder if the philosophy is because he's kind of developing the plan for those coordinators to use throughout the season.
Yeah, that seems to make the most sense, to be like, hey, guys, this is what I want to focus on. This is what I want to do. The guys that he'll see in spring training are going to be, the top-notch guys that are on the borderline or about to be on the borderline of actually maybe pitching, so he can get his eyes and, kind of remember back to he saw them in spring and where they are halfway through the year or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely kind of seems that kind of a role, almost just like, just a general manager, just kind of overlooking things, not actually being there physically, which is kind of weird to me.
The pitching GM.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense to in some regards to streamline everything, make sure everyone's on the same page, because the last thing you want is people going through the minor leagues and there's totally different expectations and philosophies thrown out, and then they get to the major leagues and it's completely different. I don't know if there was maybe an instance where something like that happened with a certain player, or if it was just something they just had some sort of difference on in the future or not. But I mean, I think it makes sense to have everything streamlined, and I wouldn't worry too much about his workload being too much or whatnot. I mean, Derek Johnson's been with the Reds, this is his third year? 3 years? Was he on 3 years?
Yeah, I think that's right.
I mean, I'm sure he knows what he can handle and what he can do, and I'm sure they'll make that all work.
Yeah.
My only other
Do you know
question.
what his philosophy is? Like what their philosophy has been?
I know Derek Johnson's very strikeout heavy. I know
Spin rate was a big thing for him.
every interview he's ever said is we want to strike guys out more, which is
years too late, too early.
So yeah, I mean, I don't think it's probably that much different than what the Reds were doing before. My guess is there's something particular, maybe in terms of recovery, maybe something like that they're just not.
You got to find a minor leaguer and get him on here to spill the beans.
Yeah.
Hey, Hunter Green, you busy next week?
Probably have to go a little lower.
Yeah, some of the shit that I had to go through with the Reds minor league farm system was brutal. I mean, I've talked about it where they want us to pitch to contact. This is basically the opposite of what Derek Johnson is doing now. Pitch to contact, throw 1-1 fastballs, and don't throw a lot of pitches. Like it was so bad.
They always wanted you to throw a 1-1 fastball.
Always, and everybody in the league knew it by the second week. And my old college pitching coach was like, "Don't you fucking do it! Don't do it! You strike everybody out. Don't let them put the ball in play. At the end of the year, they're going to hold it against you that you didn't strike anybody out, and your ERA is too high because you pitched to contact."
You'd still be playing if Derek Johnson was in charge.
I'll tell you,
Unbelievable.
I need a right-handed thumber. I'm your guy.
Get him up.
I just need one inning.
The way the Reds bullpen was this year.
Go on that DL and collect that money. Or the IL.
Like John Axford did this year with Milwaukee.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. I'm for it. But yeah, it's cool to keep the continuity, keep him back in, like Nick said, keep the velocity streamlined. Kyle, you could probably speak this better than we can, but I know a lot of people right now are kind of speculating, which for good and bad, how many people in this current bullpen will actually be on the roster next year. I think it's like, you know what I mean? It's Luis Sessa, he's going to be on the roster next year.
Right.
I would assume Amir Garrett, but I don't know if I'm going to put it as a guarantee, as our friend Charles Barkley would say. I don't know, man.
I'm up in the air on Garrett.
Yeah,
I don't know if they'll want to pay him what he's
year.
going to get.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't think I could do a CNL Perez in the bullpen next year. I'm not going to lie to you.
I still kind of believe in Perez long term. I don't know if he's quite ready yet. He needs to work on his command. Seemed like he did a little better with that later in the year when he came back up. He has the stuff. He just didn't have any command when he was up here most of the time.
Something interesting about Perez is he's out of options next year.
Yeah, so it's either he's on the roster or you're going to have to pass him through waivers.
Yeah. The only players that we've seen up that have options are Warren and Santion. I don't know if there's anyone else. Moreta still has 3, and then our boy Ryan Hendricks still has an option. Thank God. But yeah, I mean, Lucas Sims obviously will be on it. He's out of options. Justin Wilson's probably back because he has a player option.
Sessa's a lock.
Yeah. Sessa, Sims, Warren, Santion are probably the locks. Warren and Santion, they have options, so they're maybe not. I would think they probably on the major league roster, but they're definitely still on the team because they're someone you can ship up and down, which is super valuable.
The question with Santillan is, do they move him back to the rotation or do they leave him in the bullpen?
I think they're going to leave him in the bullpen, just be a long guy, just waiting for, and you hate to say it, wait for somebody to get hurt, but, with Stevenson and Lodolo going to be in the mix, not a whole lot of room.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea of leaving him in the bullpen, but you have to hope one of Lodolo or Green is ready because I don't know if Vladimir Gutierrez can be your 5th starter this year.
I told you guys this.
I agree with that too.
It's Raymar San Martin. That's the 5th starter. We're rolling with it. I'm all in.
Roster resource actually still they updated like the Reds into 2022 and they have him as the 5th starter. San Martin.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure that's not like that. Just they're putting guys in places, but I would have to think one of Green and Lodolo is going to be ready. Please be ready.
Will Wade Miley even be back though?
That's a good question. That 10 mil option.
I'm going to start him a month late. He's not going to pitch until May.
There you go. Cut out that last one. I would think the option gets picked up just because I feel like he has to have some trade value, right?
I thought so at one point too, but I've kind of talked myself out of it into the point where I think they're not going to pick it up.
Who would not pay him $10 million?
The Reds.
No. I meant no. I'm sorry. I phrased that wrong. 29 other teams. There's not a single one that would pay him $10 million next year. Or I mean, I guess 10.5 because.
Well, he's already played for half of them, Nick. So.
But I mean, if he's worth your 150th best prospect, you pick up the option, you trade him, you get someone else's 150th best prospect.
I mean, that's true, but at the same time, couldn't they have done the same thing with a lot of the guys they non-tendered last offseason?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I say maybe the Scalfani, maybe.
That one's still.
I think he wasn't he just a free agent?
He was a free agent.
I was referring to more Kirk Casale.
Kirk Casale, I think, got less than the arbitration estimate. He only got $2 million in San Francisco, so he got less than that.
And Archie Bradley was the other one that I had in mind.
Archie Bradley, I think, got like right at the estimate. It was close. So the Reds must have thought it wasn't a slam dunk that someone would take his salary. So yeah, I don't think there was anyone last year. There were some surprises. Brian Goodwin as well, but I think he only got a minor league deal. So
yeah,
I guess they got him right, or they got their value right at least. But yeah, I can't imagine. I think Miley gets picked up, and then I think one of Miley or Gray gets traded. That would be my prediction for the offseason.
Look, guys, I've been telling you this already. The Yankees are going to eat a bunch of money. They're going to eat the Chapman salary. He's going to be back in Cincinnati next year. It's just, we're going with it.
As a starter.
He should have been a starter in 2012. I will stand by this for eternity. Eternity. As fun as it was seeing him come out of the pen. But now Ryan Manson just had to get hurt. Ruin everything.
The Reds are spending less than $5 million on their bullpen next year. They have their outfield needs, and they're not. Everyone's going to be so mad, but they're not going to spend any money on the bullpen. And if their money is what it is, I don't think they should. I think they should just be picking guys up, rolling with it, and trying to piece it together because that's the best
strategy. Like they did this year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think they need a good proven reliever at least.
Well, yeah, like for like $3 million. That's all. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's all it's gonna. But I mean, think back. What were the options? Who could they have got rid of? Castellanos? Like if Kroll was told I have to save $10 million, who could they have got rid of? Castellanos? I guess Suarez. But hindsight's really, Yeah. Would you have really been happy if they got rid of Suarez last offseason?
Without the hindsight, I guess Wade Miley, salary dump Wade Miley.
But could Wade Miley have been salary dumped?
I don't know.
I don't think anyone would have picked up his contract last year because remember he only pitched like 14 innings the year before. Right? No one was high on Wade Miley going into last season. So
You would have had to give up a prospect to clear the salary, probably.
Yeah.
But
So I mean, I think it stunk, but I think they made the right call because the only player that I think they could have for sure got 10 million without like Kai, without having to like throw in some big prospect like the Homer Bailey trade where they had to throw in 2 prospects. The only way I see it would have been Castellanos, and that would have obviously been a
Pretty
mistake.
miserable.
Yeah. So,
All right. Well, that's going to be a topic we're going to have throughout the offseason, I'm sure of. But coming up also, we see we're going there. Okay. So, yes, the Reds have made a couple promotions within the organization. As you see here on the graphic, Brad Meter has been promoted to Vice President, Assistant General Manager. Rob Koppel was promoted to Senior Director of Professional Scouting. Trey Hendricks, not to be confused with the defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals, Trey Hendrickson, has been promoted to Senior Director of International Scouting. And Joe Katuska has been promoted to Director of Amateur Scouting. So, nice. Everyone's moving on up in the world.
Yeah, I think Brad's been in the organization for a long time, so it's good to see guys, work their way through the system. I watched a couple interviews with him today. Seems like a pretty knowledgeable guy, but who really knows? He drafted Sinzel. He was the guy who got him signed, which I mean, yeah, it's probably a good thing. Other than I guess if he wish he would have had a crystal ball on his health. Yeah, he was in charge of the draft. The last 3 drafts, Lodolo was him. So, yeah, see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, really not much analysis you can put into that one.
Yeah. Just want to make sure we touched on all the Reds news.
Exactly.
All the Reds news.
Yeah, now let's talk about the potential doom of not having a baseball season next year. Let's get to it.
Oh, Joe Mather was the other news. Joe Mather was hired by the D-backs. He was the Reds' assistant hitting coach. So he got promoted to the. So I think that shows the fruits of the Reds' 2021 season, that their assistant hitting coach got picked up as a full-time hitting coach. So that's always a good thing, right?
So
Cross him off the list then.
Carlos, did you strike him out when he was in the big leagues?
Probably.
Joe Mather? Yeah.
Probably.
I just remember the name, but I couldn't remember who he played for, honestly. I know he played in the majors.
He was a catcher, right?
Yeah.
I think he played for everyone.
I don't remember.
One of those like Paul Bacco kind of things where he played for everybody.
Played for everybody, not really played at all.
Right, yeah. You know what, though? Those guys, the Crash Davises of the world, they're really out there, and good for them, man. Chasing the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. So we're now looking out as we kind of get ready for this off season. Obviously, this big thing looming over their head is the potential date of December 2nd. If we don't have a CBA, we're going to have a lockout. So until then, I see Carlos has the Dikembe Mutombo wave going. We've got a lot of, free agency starts with their option decision deadlines next week. After that, we've got the decisions on qualifying offers, which looks more like obviously Nick Castellanos. The 19th, we've got the Rule 5 protection deadline. Obviously, we know a lot of the names that will be there. You got the non-tender deadline coming up shortly after that. Guys like Naquin, Sessa, Castillo, Garrett, Winker, Mallet, etc. Jeff Hoffman, Kyle Farmer, Lucas Sims, and of course Nick Senzel. Which you could sign those guys, and the next day you could potentially not have a lockout here. So this is what the offseason calendar is looking like right now, and kind of going through what kind of jumps out to you guys the most here as far as the decision making, the tender deadlines, obviously besides Nick Castellanos.
Just I mean the December 2nd, I mean that's what it all hinges on, If nothing's done, I mean everything freezes at that point. I'm very curious to see if because once once you get past the deadline on the qualifying offer, I think that's when free agency officially begins. I'm curious to see if in those like 2.5 weeks, if there's any action among free agents, like if there's any rush to get free agents signed before the CBA expires. I don't think so. I would assume most teams are going to wait till after that, but I wonder if there's going to be a player that says, hey, I want to get signed before this expires.
I feel like maybe the mid-tier players would try to do that.
Yeah,
top players will want to wait, but
yeah, if you're the Michael Lorenzen of the world, maybe, hey, I just want to get signed before this expires, and I don't want to have to be, because I mean, if let's just say they go into lockout and it's like going into spring training next year, there's going to be a really short window to sign players, right? I mean, it's going to be it freezes. I mean, they'll obviously have some sort of startup even if they delay the season or whatever, but it's going to be a short window and it's going to be a real free for all. I would assume at that point. So I'm kind of curious if there'll be any action, in those 2 weeks. I hope we don't get into a work stoppage, which is not really a work stoppage because it's the off season, but man, it's just after 2020, it would just look bad for everyone involved. But all reports seem like that's what's going to happen.
Can we get do you remember in the 2012 when the NBA had that lockout and they just basically had like barnstorm leagues, like traveling the country playing games? Could we get that, just pick up games everywhere, and they raise money for charity where they play? I'm all for that. If we're not gonna get uniform baseball, I can live with that as a substitute.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Yeah, no.
You'll be over it after the first 30 minutes of the first pickup game.
I'm only watching if Joe West is umpiring. I watch for the umpires.
From behind the mound. Yep.
Well, in 95, they actually had replacement players start spring traiing.
I remember that.
I just saw some sort of mini documentary on that where they were talking about that. And it was one of those things where these minor league guys were put into this awful situation of do I say no to that? Or do I say yes? If you say no, the players are going to, kill you for it. If you say no, then you might, hurt your chances of getting called up later and, piss off the owners or the general managers and all that. So, yeah, I hope it doesn't get to that point. That would just be miserable and it'd be bad for everyone. Everyone needs to do everything they can to make this work and not drag out because it's gonna hurt everyone.
If they do get to that, I don't see it lasting very long because the owners are going to cry poor. All they're going to do is piss off the fans, and then they're really not going to want to come to the games. So that would be kind of counterintuitive on their end. All the stuff that went on, the last 2 years, guys don't want to lose money anymore. I kind of almost feel like they're more closer to an NFL situation to where the turnover is really high. Younger guys haven't got paid. They missed out on that money, and they're like, just give us the money. We don't want to hold out for a month in the season, lose a sixth of our paycheck. Let's go.
Yeah. It'd be interesting. I think by next week we should have knowledge of who's opted in, opted out. We want to do some predictions on this. I would say Castellanos opts out. I would say the Reds pick up Miley. They decline Barnhart, and then Wilson. That's his choice. I think Wilson will pick himself up.
I would agree with that. I think Wilson is kind of a toss-up. Someone might pay him more than $2 million.
Yeah, with the CBA expiring though, I would say he's if I was him, I think I'd be like, yep, I'm good. Let's roll. I'm not gonna risk it.
What did Baseball Reference say he made this year? Does anybody know?
This year?
Yeah. What was his performance worth? Tim, we got any more promos to read?
No.
Play some Jeopardy music.
We haven't picked up our second sponsor just yet, so
Come on, Nick, tell us a joke.
well, I guess while they're looking that up, should we go ahead and do our final topic?
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like this is one where I'm just really curious because I know where this could go. So I'm going to ask the question while Nick pulls the graphic up, and I'm going to mute my microphone, just sit here and eat, pop some popcorn because I'm in a group text with you two every day, and I love these conversations sometimes. So obviously, the Tampa Bay Rays, last year's American League champions, made the playoffs again this year, did lose in the first round of the Red Sox, have this big conversation on a lot of, this conversation goes on quite a bit. This question was obviously asked to us on a future show. Can you go in depth on the subject of the Rays and why you feel they're bad for baseball? That being Carlos Guevara. So I'm pressing mute now. Have fun, buddy.
Saying they're bad for baseball is probably a bit of a stretch, kind of depending on who you ask. But as far as a player and as far as players getting paid, I mean, it's not a good thing because if everybody operated that way, it'd be in a tough situation all the way around. It's hard for the fan base to support because how can you get attached to anyone? Their crowds will tell you that, which, I mean, playing in Tampa, I guess, really doesn't matter because Tom Brady has some trouble filling out those stadiums anyway. But it's just, I think it would be hard to be like a guy that's going to have a 10-year career and know you're coming up with them. And, by the time you reach your third, fourth year, you're already wondering if you're going to get traded. You're not going to, put any roots down or anything like that. It's almost disheartening. Like I don't like the way it is. I don't like anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think that their model is good for baseball. I also, at the same time, don't necessarily think like they are doing anything egregious. Like I don't look at the Rays and go, "Oh my goodness, they are just so cheap." Because I think if you really like look at the amount of revenue that they're bringing in versus some of even the big dogs, I think they're still spending close to the same amount of profit margin on their players. I know, Carlos, I've shared with you. There's a Cardinals fan that is like some business guru that kind of went through and did a player cost analysis based on profit, and the Yankees were the lowest. Like the Yankees spend the lowest amount of their revenue on payroll. So they're all getting in different amounts of revenue, and so every team in baseball could spend more. I think that's where a lot of people seem to forget is that just because a certain team's spending $100 million and a certain team's spending $200 million, the $200 million team could be spending a lot more too. But I think in theory, they're mostly all spending about the same amount of their profit on players. It doesn't fluctuate. I don't think that crazy, which is why I tend not to get too, bent out of shape about the Reds payroll, which I know makes people mad, but I think if you look at the other teams in the similar markets, the Reds aren't like doing anything egregious. I wish the Reds spent more, but I think if I was a fan of any team in baseball, I probably would wish they spent more. I think that's just kind of the nature of it. So I don't know. I don't think the Rays necessarily are doing anything wrong. I agree that, that's not a great model, but the other weird thing is I hear a lot of wish the Reds operated like the Rays. I don't think many Reds fans would actually enjoy that. Like, because if the Reds operate like the Rays, they would be trying to trade Jesse Winker, Luis Castillo, and Tyler Mahle right now. Like the guys that are, have a couple years left. Their arbitration numbers are starting to get pretty high. Those are the players they're trying to move. That would be really hard. Their model works for, what they're doing, but that's a brutal way to approach baseball.
Yeah. I mean, especially with Cincinnati being such like a like rich in their history and attaching themselves to players and stuff. Like, I forget who it was on Twitter. It might have been John. I'm not sure of his last name. But he said that he'd be okay with going with the Tampa Bay style, because they would have pennants and stuff like that. I'm like, but who are you going to attach yourself to? Like 5 years from now, who are you going to talk about? Who are you going to tell your kids about? Like, I mean, it's not very fun to get behind. It's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I don't know if Tampa Bay Rays fans from like the 90s are like, kids, I saw Wade Boggs play for 2 years.
Yeah. Telling them about how Willie Adames helped him go to the World Series. Like, no, nobody's going to talk about that. Nobody's going to remember him. I mean, who do you remember for the Rays, like history-wise? Longoria?
David Price. James Shields. That's about it, yeah.
I don't think most diehard Reds fans would want to go that route.
Do you guys remember like when the Reds traded Dunn, that they offered him to Tampa, but they wanted Evan Longoria in return?
I do not remember that, Tim. That's a
Did you
nugget.
answer about how much Wilson was worth last year?
Yeah, so Wilson's on a really weird contract. So last year he made $2.85 million. The Reds, I think, only paid like probably about $800,000 of that. They basically paid for his contract to get Sessa without having to give up big prospect. So here's Wilson's next year. He has a $2.3 million player option. If he picks that up, he is then also signed for 2023 at the league minimum. So that's another caveat. So maybe Kyle, that was what you were thinking about.
That's what I was referencing. I think.
I guess that does make it a little more interesting, because basically you're making $3 million for 2 years, right? If I'm about,
right.
So that's I don't know. Maybe he does decline. I don't understand what the 1.5 million buyout is, because if it's a player option, how do you buy that out?
Maybe since there's two different options there, if both are declined, he gets the buyout.
Yeah, I don't. Someone smarter than me is gonna have to figure that one out. But yeah, I'll just. He's just gonna be. We're just gonna wait and see what he does, and then we can figure out.
So I guess I didn't really make myself very clear, but I was asking more of like, what, based on his performance, what was he worth last year?
Yeah, I have those numbers. According to Fangraph's dollar value, if you combine his numbers from both teams, he was worth negative 1.8 million. But if you just do his Reds performance alone, he was worth positive 1.4 million.
Must have been really bad in New York, huh?
Yeah, he was really bad in New York. And those 2 months with the Reds, he was worth almost 1.5 million. So,
good Lord.
And the Reds only paid, man, Spot Track is like really slow today. The Reds paid $1.026 million for him. So he was right at his value with the Reds. There you go. That's awesome. Rarely do you see a player like exactly, you got exactly what you paid for.
Damn, I don't see him picking that player option up then. I don't know why you would.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of betting on yourself. It's like, oh, I really don't belong here. Let me get this $2 million and hope for the best.
But the question is, would he get more than a league minimum deal next year? I mean,
he might have to settle for a minor league deal if he doesn't pick up the player option.
Maybe like a Doolittle, like not a minor league deal, but like $1 million. Like, did we see him get more than Doolittle? I mean, I feel like they're pretty similar profiles going into where they're at, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I think the Reds had
velocity drops.
I think the Reds would love for him to decline. The only reason the Reds got him was to get Sessa.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think the Reds would be like, good luck, buddy. Congrats. We'll sign you back on a minor league deal if you want, like.
I think the Wilson decision might also factor into whether or not they offer Amir Garrett arbitration. If Wilson's coming back, maybe they let Amir Garrett go, and if Wilson doesn't come back, maybe they'll bring Garrett back.
If they let him go, don't they owe like $500 to Amir?
I think since he's arbitration eligible, you can just non-tender him and not offer him a contract like they did with all those guys last year.
Yeah, I think you can take him to spring though, and only pay like $45,000 for him. I don't, because he's still at the like he's only like arbitration 2, I think. So I don't think you have to pay him like his full salary if you decide to cut him in spring training. So
I think you might be right on that one.
I don't see the Reds. I don't see the Reds cutting Amir Garrett before the end of spring training. I could see him getting traded. I would think a team like the Dodgers that can, if it doesn't work out, they can afford a $2 million gamble, which is I think what his estimate is. I wouldn't see why a team like them wouldn't say, hey, let's pick him up. They do that a lot. Like Knebel was kind of like a risk, and Blake Trinan. They were both like kind of risky players, and they're the only ones who can pay them, or that's willing to pay them, I guess I should say. And it's worked out for them. So I feel like he'd be the kind of like player they would just love to take a risk on. So yeah, I would think he has a tiny bit of trade value, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being too optimistic on him.
I just don't know why it's crazy to think that.
I just don't know why they would have kept him all year. Like, they were clearly hiding him in the bullpen from like July on. So like, why would you keep him on your roster when you had a team that was fighting for a playoff spot if you weren't planning on keeping him, right? Like, that would just make no sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know.
Yeah. I was going to ask when we were talking about the Tampa thing earlier. Is Wander Franco going to be the guy to break that? Or like, are they really going to break their fans' hearts when they trade him in like 4 years?
Yeah, he's going to be gone. They would have traded Mike Trout.
You're right.
Sure.
I think the only way Wander Franco sticks around long-term with the Rays is if they can somehow sign him to a contract like the Braves got with Ozzie Albies or Ronald Acuna. If they get a contract that's clearly a massive underpay, then I think they might sign him long-term. But otherwise, yeah, you're probably right. He's probably going to get traded somewhere.
Yeah, give him $200 million right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to turn that away.
I think the amount of flack that like Ozzie Albies got for that deal, and then like I'm sure his like whoever represents him, like I would think it's going to be really hard to swing another deal like that again without like
What was the deal?
It was very friendly. I remember that. Is it like 40 million or something?
I think it was less than that.
It was ridiculous. It was nuts. Like but look, that's the hard, and that's what a lot of the CBA negotiations are about is service time, which is one of the big things. But yeah, I mean,
that's one of the things on their docket is to get it down to at least 5 years instead of 6.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Albies is in a tough spot. Like if you get hurt and your career's ended, you lose that money. So
Albies got 7 years and $35 million.
Good God.
That's a Scottie Pippen contract right there, man.
That's like half of what Brandon Phillips got, and
I'm sure
better.
Every other position player in the league who had like 3 or 4 years in wanted to Tanya Harding his ass.
Yeah, no, I mean, there was a lot of people upset, a lot of players upset about that. That's why I'm saying I can't imagine Franco being like, yeah, I'm going to sign up for that flack.
And I mean, even Acuna at 8 years and $100 million. That was
that's still like
that's still
deal.
We should also probably be clear. It's really not Ozzie Albies' fault. It's whoever represented him's fault.
Yeah,
it's not really like he's doing whatever he's recommended to do by the experts, which obviously his guy was not an expert, because he could be making more than that in arbitration right now, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like that's insane.
I kind of wish I didn't know that now. Damn it! I'm gonna look at him way different.
Oh man.
I
guess I'm just dreaming that Wander Franco will be a Red one day.
One last thing on the Rays. I do think that the Reds could be more aggressive than they are, like in some instances. I don't think they need to go full Rays, but I do think the Reds, there are some principles the Rays do where they make those cutthroat moves, and the Reds should do that sometimes. I think you have to really pick and choose. The Reds have had a lot of players that they waited too long to trade on. I think there could be a better balance of that, and I think it would make sense to trade some of these guys and then use the money on free agents, because you're getting prospects back for the player you trade, and then you're still spending the same money on a free agent as opposed to your own player where you're not getting anything in return for them. So I think there's some principles of that the Reds could be better at without going too crazy.
Yeah, I feel like what the Rays are doing is kind of a more extreme version of the Oakland A's Moneyball. They're valuing players differently than the A's did, but they're still trying to do the same thing where they're finding value in cheaper players like that, and then the roster turnover. There needs to be some sort of balance between it, but I think it's not necessarily bad that the Rays are doing it, but yeah, they could probably spend some more money and be an even better team if they would do that.
And I think they've changed the game. It changed the way a lot of other teams are viewing players now, because for so many years we would see teams, give up these exorbitant packages for players of prospects. And it seems like now every team, even the rich teams or the higher spending teams, are valuing prospects a lot more than they were before, because they got burned by teams like the Braves over and over again, giving up their best prospects. That everyone has to hold on to their prospects, or it doesn't matter. The money runs out for everyone at some point. You have to have some young controllable players, at least with the way the game is set up right now, in order to be successful.
And that's what the Players Association is seeing, and that's why they want to get one less year. They're trying to jump ahead of it because they see the curve going that way, and it's it sucks for a guy who's coming up for the first 6 years.
Yeah, I mean it sucks for some guys that get hurt in their second or third year that had MVP caliber years, or like Jonathan India. I don't want to say this. I'm but just say something happens to him, he would other than he got a nice signing bonus, but there'd be nothing. He's making league minimum right now, and it's a mess. The whole system's a mess. You have to, teams like the Reds, you got to be smart and play within the rules that you have, or you can be the hero all you want, but you'll just get burned by other teams. I'm not looking forward to December 2nd.
Yeah, I have to imagine there's going to be some sort of change that comes to that with the new CBA.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it won't be enough. I mean, I'm sure.
Oh no, it probably won't be.
Whatever is, look, the owners aren't just gonna say, oh yeah, we're gonna be great humanitarians now out of nowhere.
Yeah, but hopefully it'll at least be a step in the right direction for the players.
Yeah. I mean, things have come a long way from where they were. So, I mean, look, there's players, players in baseball, the highest earning players are making a lot more than a lot of other leagues. So, in that regard, there's definitely been a lot of progress. I think there's still, probably a ways to go.
Yeah, I would think it's highly unlikely that we don't have baseball in that first week of April.
I hope so.
Be a long off season of podcasting if we if we're in a lockout very
They go on break, we go on break. Damn it!
Come hang out with us while we watch Homer Bailey's no hitter. We'll just put it up in the corner here.
What? You're really creative, fellas.
Dude, I had to do it during the basketball pandemic. During the pandemic, just figure out stuff to put with the NBA. It was really hard. But I can figure it out. But all right, guys, I think with that being said, we're going to go and wrap up our first ever Monday night edition of Late Night Reds Talk Live. Hopefully you all enjoyed the show tonight and have been coming back, part of the Believe Podcast Network, part of Bet Online. Thank you all for tuning in. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Before we get out of here, please take a second to shout yourself out, your social medias, your work, anything you want to do, please. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast this week, guys. You can check out my work at Reds Content Plus, Max's Sporting Studio, and then my other podcast, Reds Recall. And then my Twitter handle is at KB_48.
Perfect. Well, thank you guys so much again. Have a great night and go Reds.